Hey y'all, welcome back to Andy's Little Homestead. Today I'm going to tell y'all the story of a dump truck that I used to own named Big Debbie, how she got her name, and how I got that thing insured for $12 a month. It's a fun tale of overdose and insurance fraud that the whole family can enjoy, really. The reason I'm telling you this is to give you the background on the truck that I'm working on getting running right now. I had hoped to have that video out this week, but we didn't have enough ammo for the parts cannon. So prior to Hurricane Florence, my company down in North Carolina would just use dumpsters for our jobs. We did roofing and siding and whatever else. It was just easier to have somebody else deal with the overhead. And then Hurricane Florence hit, and a dumpster was a hard thing to find. And dump trailers, for some reason, hold their value really, really well. Nobody wants to get rid of them for less than really what they paid for them. But I had a bunch of jobs that we were in the process of. I had multiple roofs that were already completely done with all the shingles in tarps rolled up in the yard, and they had to go somewhere. So I'm searching around on Marketplace. I find this beautiful 1964 Chevy C60. It's just in perfect shape. It's about 7 hours away from me across the state. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I drove across the state, and then I bought that truck for $4,000, and I drove it. It was about 8 or 9 hours back. She topped out at like 55. Believe it or not, the old 292 and that old girl did great. Made it all the way back, painted up in the yard, literally brushed on Rust-Oleum, put the logos on the doors and let her wobble. I love that truck. That's why I bought the one that I'm working on now. But I was trying to figure out a good name for that truck, and I remembered an overdose call that I had gone on with the fire department several years prior to that. It was right up the road from me in Otway, in T's Trailer Park. And when we went to this particular overdose call, not the lady who was overdosing, there was another lady there who introduced herself to me as Big Debbie. Now that sounds mean, but you gotta understand, she introduced herself to me. I can't say she didn't own it. She introduced herself as she was kind of flirting with me, and I'll be honest, you know, the rest of her was big too, but she was getting kind of aggressive with it. I felt a little uncomfortable. I mean, I lived like a mile down the road. Wasn't that hard to find. It's not a good situation. So I've got this old dump truck, and I'm trying to think of a name, and I'm like, well, it's big, it's old, it's ugly, and I'm real dependent on it. I really don't need it to me. I'm gonna name it Debbie. That's how Debbie came to be. But the thing was, to drive it down the road and get a plate on it, I need to have it insured. So I called my insurance lady, and I told her I have an old project truck, need to get it insured. She's like, all right, well, can you read me the VIN number? And I gave it to her, and she paused for a second. She said, well, there's not enough numbers in that. And I was like, well, I read you every dang number that was on there. Apparently at some point they switched from like a 9 or 10 digit VIN to a 17 digit, or I don't know what it is. Long story short, this insurance company that I'm not going to name, but it covers the whole nation, you know, wide as it is. They couldn't seem to figure out exactly what truck that I had. So she starts asking me, well, I mean, like, what is it? And I was like, oh, it's just an old project truck, just something I'm working on, which wasn't a lie. The fact that I had a 21,000 pound gross vehicle weight and would regularly haul tons and tons of shingles and construction debris was, I mean, that was secondary. I probably could have included that, but I didn't. They added that truck to my policy for an extra $12 a month. Yes, sir, Debbie done pulled a fast one on them. Well, Andy, wouldn't that be bad if you had wrecked, you would have gotten in a little trouble? Yeah, but I didn't. Look, I'm just saying, when you're self-employed, you kind of like feast or famine. You got to make things work when you can. You do what you got to do. Point is, I put a plate on that girl and drove her for years. One of the most reliable trucks that I ever had. Unfortunately, when I moved to Michigan, I had to sell old Debbie. I didn't think she would, well, she'd make it through the mountains, but it'd have been like 5 miles a gallon, and I had no way to make it happen. So when I saw Big Debbie number 2 come up for sale on Marketplace for $1,200, I hadn't run in 15 years, but that's no big deal. I jumped all over it. It's been sitting here for a while, and I've been needing to get it running, but I got a million things going on. But I don't know, man. It'd be nice to be able to run a dump truck around the farm. So that's what I'm working on. I had really hoped to have that video done by today. It was more of a process than I thought it was going to be. Fun. Anyway, that's how I committed fraud to insure a truck that was named after a lady who sexually harassed me during an overdose call. Sometimes life's fun like that. I should have the video of her running up in a couple days. As always, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope you learned something. You didn't learn anything. That's okay, it was fun. I love y'all. God bless. The preceding video was just a story. It was just made up. Your Honor, I wouldn't do something like that. I just say these things so that people click, because that gives me fulfillment, makes me feel good about myself. It definitely wasn't exactly what I did at all. Also, what's the statute of limitations on that?